going to be using the training site to kind of walk through all the appointment center functions, um, just to kind of orientate you to how to get to the appointment center. Um, right up top here, this icon, when you hover over it, you'll see appointment center and kiosk. And so we're going to actually look at both of them today, but we'll start with the appointment center. But also at the bottom of your screen, it's a little hard to see, but at the bottom, you can see down here next to this little chat icon, there are these what are called additional modes, and you can also access the appointment center or kiosk from here. So really doesn't matter which way. Ultimately, they'll both kind of get you to 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 where you're trying to go. So when you go into the appointment center, you'll want to you'll want to find your location, and I'm going to use this location for today's demo training. Um, when you get to the appointment center, you're going to have a search box. You're going to have a grid with um, individuals and their availabilities. Now, this is always going to show you the current day. Like the appointment center always displays one day, but you can navigate using the calendar and you can go into different days. You can also filter like by this these little time drop downs. So if you're looking for, just a specific, if it's in the afternoon and you just want to see the afternoon, it's like a little after 10. So I could filter this so we're only looking at from 10 a.m. on. You can filter by care unit. So most of you are going to in most cases it'll only be one care unit that you're like working with. However, there might be circumstances where you might be using two care units, just the way we have certain services set up. So I'll try to talk and walk through that. You can filter by services. So if I select a specific service, then it filters and it shows you who is available for that service. You can also filter by staff. So that just allows me to look at specific people. And you can also filter by the meeting type. So let's see. Yeah, okay. So if I choose the virtual online, I only see two people. All meeting types, I can see four. So that's just very basic navigation. You also have these options over here to do like an orientation vertical or horizontal. So if you switch it to horizontal, it basically puts your names in this column here, and then the time zone along the top. I mean, I don't know. Personally, I kind of lean towards the vertical, but um, yeah, that's a personal preference. And you can also choose the display name. So right now it's set to service, but you can change that to attendee. So if you keep your eye on this right here, it should switch to the student's name. So that's just some options that you have there. So that's the basic orientation. The appointment center's main function is to essentially manage and check in appointments or drop-ins or other kinds of check-ins that might happen in like a location. So this is really like if your office, if you have like a reception or a front desk area and you have someone that manages that or works there, that could be like professional staff, or a lot of times that might be student assistants, then they can use the appointment center to check in students for their appointments, put them in drop-in queues, check them in for other types of things. Like I know there are areas around campus that have like things like computer labs or like study spaces or just like other kinds of areas that they want to track how many students are coming through. And so you can do all of this in the appointment center. Focusing on the grid for just a little bit, you can see the individuals who have availability for the day. And this is a really important concept, is that in order to show up in this appointment center, each of these individuals has to have availability for that day. So looking at the column here, this is me. I have availability for appointments, but also for drop-ins. Joe has availability for appointments and drop-ins, but Farifta and Marina in these examples only have availability for drop-in. So the gray out area is is not available time. But this drop-in column indicates that she is available for drop-ins. In this case with Marina, um, she is available for drop-ins up until noon today. You can use this and look at noon. And then back on my column, I have appointment and drop-in availability up until 3 p.m. So so you have to kind of like understand that to kind of get like just to sort of like know what you're looking at. You'll also see in this example, and I don't have a lot going on here, but there is an appointment. So this indicates an appointment, um, and you can click on it. And when you click on it, it shows you the details about the appointment. And you can do different things once you click on it. So um, I can cancel this appointment. I could check it in. I could edit this or I could move it. Um, you could also do messages here. So this gives whoever is accessing this appointment center flexibility to do different things with those appointments. And I'm just checking. There's a question that came through. Um, if we don't see everyone's name, yeah. So if you don't see anyone's name, if you're looking at your appointment center and you don't see anyone, that means that no one has availability set up. Or the other thing you might need to do is change the care unit because again, some locations, not all locations are in the same care unit. And so you just might need to make sure that you're selecting the right care unit. So that would be what you would want to look for. Yeah. Okay. So I think I answered that, but if not, we can maybe do a follow-up later on. All right. So as I had mentioned, the main function here is to check in students for either appointments or drop-ins or for other types of like resources that they might be utilizing. So let's walk through that a little bit. So the first thing is an appointment. So when a student comes in and they have an appointment, they would like walk up to, wherever your reception area, wherever your front desk area is. And, they'd say, oh, hey, I'm here for my appointment. And you're like, great, can I get your name or your CWID? CWID always is best. If they have their ID, that's really the best way to, just type it in. Oops. But you can also search by name. And so when you click on, when the student is selected here, then what you'll see if they have an appointment, which I have this obviously set up for the demo, is that it has this like appointment card here. And so this is telling me that there is an appointment today at 10:30 and the organizer is your advisor or your counselor or whatever staff person is meeting with the student. And then you have the student and then it's telling you, if they're early or if they're late, it'll tell you that here. But basically, it's really easy to just click the check-in button, and that'll check in the student. You also have options here under actions where you could edit this, you could move it, you could cancel it. So again, this is like an area to manage appointments, not just like for checking them in, that's part of managing them, but also let's say just a scenario where like maybe I call in sick for the day and I'm not able to meet with the student. What you can use the appointment center to do is you could move this appointment. So let's say I'm gonna move this to a different staff person. I can click on actions and move. And so then what it does is it kind of moves it. It brings you down here. So what we're looking at right now is we're looking at the student. This is the student's calendar here. This is my calendar, and these are the calendars of other individuals. So I would want to maybe move this appointment to a individual staff person that has availability. So I could move this over to Joe. So all I need to do is click in this space, and it just moved over to Joe, and that's it. So just to kind of go through that one more time. And I also just want to show you too that you don't necessarily have to have the students selected here. It's helpful, but if I wanted to take this appointment here, and let's say I want to move it over to one of these individuals. Now, they're not showing availability, but I could still move it. So I could go over here, click on it, click move, and then just click right here, and it moves it over to Farita. So that's just one way to easily move appointments from one staff person to another. And I see some things in the chat here. Yeah, okay, so I think I just answered that question. If it involves or calls out sick. Yeah, so basically I just answered that question. Okay. Um, Now notice that I was moving the appointment within the same time block. And that is primarily because, I mean, you wouldn't really want to move appointment times without really talking to the student because they're going to be expecting one thing and then they show up they're like, oh yeah, I moved it later the day. That's not really good, a good practice there. So I'm just moving things from one person to another within the same time block. um, and just again, I'll just kind of show you this one more time as you just can click on it, click move, and then just move it back to um, whatever person you want to move it to. All right, so I moved it back to me. And then obviously what I could do as well is Lorenzo. And essentially when I'm ready to check in the student, just click check in. And that's checked in that student. Now that student is in my advising queue. So this is what we talked about in our last meeting about managing queues. And that's basically that's a done process. In addition to managing appointments such as checking them in, you can actually schedule appointments for students as well in this grid. So if you have a student, um, and let's say you wanted to make an appointment for them, I mean, there are multiple ways that you can schedule appointments for students. This is just another way to do it. So here I have a student selected in my search box. And essentially what I can do is if I wanted to schedule an appointment, like I could schedule an appointment today. I could also choose a different day. Let's say I want to schedule this next week. So I select the day in my calendar here. So now I'm looking at July 23rd, and I could schedule this. It's a good practice to select services because not all individuals may like provide the service that you want to schedule. So for GE advising, that one, yeah. So if I select like this Fullerton finish, there's only one person available. But if I choose like GE advising, pretty much more people are available. But I'll go ahead and I'll schedule this at 11 a.m. here. So to schedule the appointment, all you do is click into that block. So here, this is the service. I'm going to choose the meeting type. The date and the time should already be populated here. You can enter comments if you choose to. These are going to be all checked. Actually, these might not all be checked in the production site. I'm going to just uncheck some of these. And then you can basically hit create appointment. And so then that created that appointment. One thing that you're not seeing right now, and it's something that you would see in the live site, is when you have the student's calendar open like this, the classes they're enrolled in will show up here. So that'll give you like a little bit of a guide. Like if a student it's not really a best practice to schedule an appointment during a student's class time. I mean, the student, yeah, like I don't think that really is a practice that we engage in, but the system will let you do that. So you just have to be, you want to pay attention to this student column and just make sure that you aren't scheduling those appointments during their class times. But you'll see them. They're like, it'll say the class and it'll have a block for the time and all that. Question is, does staff get confirmation email if it's rescheduled? Yeah, so whenever you make a change to an appointment like that, like whether you're moving it between staff or even creating them or canceling them, the staff will be notified by that. It's a good question. Um, the other thing I wanted to show you, so you can obviously from this screen you can cancel appointments. So if I click cancel, we always choose to cancel the entire appointment. You can choose a reason, then mark as canceled, and then you can see that was all canceled, and I can close that. So now there's no appointments here. But what I also want to show you is, let's say you're trying to schedule an appointment, and let's say you wanted to schedule it at 11:30. But let's say when you click, you kind of miss the block, right? So this one actually got created at 11:45. You can change that right here. You can just go ahead and change it, and then go ahead and make sure that your service, your meeting type is all reflected accurately, and then again, just you can create the appointment that way. Yeah. So if you happen to miss your block, then no worries. You can just adjust it on that screen. Um, so now this is showing us, and this is like a really um, this is kind of cool is where, so like today is the 17th, right? And if you put in a student's um information in here, it will show you, oh, this student has an upcoming appointment in 6 days. So sometimes students, they may, I don't know, they may forget when their appointment is, or they can't find it. I don't know, yeah, sometimes students just can't, they don't always keep the best track of things. Um, this is an area where you can like, quickly look and see like when their appointment is by just like searching them here, and it'll say, oh, it's in 6 days. It's on the 23rd. Okay. Um, so that that's pretty much kind of the main points with this scheduling grid. But there's more. So this little drop down, and I didn't really mention this earlier, this drop down here, you've got your scheduling grid, which is what we're looking at right now. But then you also have drop-in appointments and scheduled appointments. So for drop-in appointments, this is where you would go when you want to basically check a student in for a drop-in. So it's it's the time during the day or the week where you're doing walk-in or drop-in appointments, and a student comes into your office. Um, you can you can drop them in for an appointment. So you would basically pull their CWID in here. Oh, bad example. Let me get a different ID. Okay. So the student comes in and they want to do a drop in. So here you have this button here, which says add to staff queue. So you click on it, and then it's going to show you who is available for drop-ins. So you have the option here for first available. So we did talk about this a little bit last time, where if the student doesn't really, if they don't mind, like if they don't mind who they meet with, they just want to meet with someone, whoever's available first, then you can choose this first available option. Or if they do have a preference, or if you have certain like caseloads and students should meet with their assigned advisor, then you would drop them into the individual person if if that makes sense. So regardless, you would just choose one of these either first available or one of the people, and then select service. These comments are optional, but they are kind of helpful. Um, and then you can just hit add to staff queue. Okay. And so now these little notifications are saying the student was moved to the first available queue. And also what you'll see here in this screen is you're going to see the queues. You're going to see that there is a student in a queue. Um, and then as advisors or staff are like working with their students, and let's say they start meeting with students, then um, then what you'll start to see is let me refresh this screen. Oh, sorry, this won't. Okay, so that was a bad example. I can do. Um, let me drop in another student. Sorry. Okay, let me drop this in. Okay, so just to kind of, so I guess we'll walk through this one more time. So this student does have an upcoming appointment, but they just show up today. With, um, they want to meet with someone right now, so you can add them to the queue. Um, so again, I'll just um, do first available, add a staff queue. Okay, and then jump back over here. Okay, so I'm gonna actually pull this student off the queue because what I want to be able to show you down here. Yeah. Okay, so now what we can see, because I did pull off one of those drop-ins, is we have only one student waiting in the queue, but then there's also an in-progress visit. So this lets you see that this student who was checked in for a drop-in is actually meeting with someone now because I started that appointment as the advisor, and so that kind of indicates that like that student is now being attended to. Um, and that's really, I mean, for drop-ins, it is kind of, yeah, it's really straightforward. You just essentially just like put the students, look up the student here, hit add to staff queue, choose, either first available or one of the specific people, choose the service, and then just add the staff queue. And then that's it. They're in there. And then that moves everything over to the advisor side. So now the advisor gets that notification, which you saw pop up on the bottom right-hand corner of my screen, and the advisors then kind of take it from there. All right. So that's drop-ins. I also want to talk about these two features, which is the track time and the record visit. So for some locations on campus, like I mentioned earlier, you might have like a resource center, study hall, computer lab, and you want to like track that information. So you can do that through this appointment center. So basically here you just again, we are in the drop-in area. So I just want to reiterate, we're in the drop-in area. You look up your student, and then so if you notice up here, you have these two options, track time and record visit. So you could do them right from here, or you also have the options down below. So six one way, half a dozen the other. Um, Start with tracking time. So tracking time is a setup function. So this has to be set up on the location. So that's something that I would have to work with you to do if you're interested or inclined. But track time means we're tracking when they check in and when they check out. So I would just click track time. Oh shoot. Um, okay. So this is where sometimes you might have to toggle between care units. So you notice right now I'm on the advising care unit. I'm going to toggle over to the other services care unit. And you notice how like everything cleared out from here because all those check-ins I previously did were in the advising care unit. And now I'm going to use this other services care unit. So I'm going to actually track time and I'm going to track time for this service, which I have set up for study space. So again, these comments are optional, but you can go ahead and put some information in here and then click track time. So essentially what I've done is I've just checked this student in to this study space. And and for the track time, we want to make sure that students check in and check out. So I'm just going to let this one flow for a little while. I'm going to pull up another student. Okay. So for this student, I'm going to choose the record a visit. And for this one, I just have the computer lab set up. So I'm just going to record the visit, meaning that essentially recording a visit is just a head count. So it's gonna, so in, we're gonna look at some reports at the kind of the very end. But basically, when you do a record a visit, you're just tracking the day and the time that they showed up, and that's it. So you're getting that the day they showed up and the time they showed up, and that's it. So I can record the visit, and we're done. So we don't have to do anything else with that. Um, what you will see at the below here, you will actually see those students who are checked in for track time. So this is like a really this is a helpful way to just like again manage your location, like who is in my space right now, right? And this will tell you who is in your space, and it tells you their name, their ID, what they're in the space for, and then when they checked in. So that track time and record visit. So again, I meant when you have students like up in this search box, you can do those options there, but you can also just click on one of these two, and then what you would have to do essentially is put in the ID here. But then you can also just check them in from this screen as well. So just giving you options here. Um, but the way this one is set up is these services are set up in a separate care unit. So, and it maybe would make sense to have everything in the same care unit. So, like if this is something that you're interested in like pursuing, then I would say just like reach out to me and let's try to like talk through it and figure out what your needs are so that we can configure accordingly and just because I honestly I think it's a little cumbersome to have to switch care units, but I guess for the demo I just had to set it up this way. Okay. Um, Once you have a student checked in, then ideally what you would want is the student to check out, right? So whether that is, um, whether they go back to that reception area and they say, "Hey, I'm leaving," or there is like this option for the kiosk, which I'm gonna kind of segue into in just a moment. I see there's a couple of questions here. Um, okay, so do students, I'm checking the chat for questions. Do students sign in to drop in, or can you require them to check in to get on the calendar? So Diane's question, do students sign in to drop in, or can you require them to check in to get on the calendar? Um, I might need clarification on that question. I mean, essentially, like, yes, like for the drop-ins, I mean, what I would recommend is that you do check them in so that they can get into those queues. Um, I know sometimes students kind of slip by or something like that, but
Daniel, I'm just thinking about like a way to manage the number of students that show up and drop in. So if you get a line of students of 15, they nobody outside there can take up a spot for drop-in. They get in line and you put them in the queue as they stand in line.
Yeah, so that's what, yeah, that would, I mean, yeah, I know sometimes there's like that rush. So yeah, you could do that. We do have an option to allow students to check in online for drop-ins. Um, I didn't actually set that up for the demo, but I maybe could pull that off pretty quickly. But essentially, there is functionality where students can check in online. So they could just like pull up their smartphone and check in. Or the kiosk would be like another way to expedite because the kiosk, and I'm going to show you this in a second, is really quick. Essentially, they would just, yeah, like put in their ID or swipe their ID into like a card reader, and then they can just check in for drop-ins really quick. So like yeah, I mean, it might take like 35 to 60 seconds. No, not even. It would take 15 to 35 seconds to like get a student checked in through the kiosk, I think. I'll demo that so you can kind of see how that flow would look. And then the other question, our center uses some ish or has seen some issues with students checking in and not showing up in the staff queue. Student assistants can see them. Um, I think Ariely, I probably want to like talk to you offline about that just to see like some examples. My guess though is maybe that the appointments are set up, but there isn't availability, is what I guess. But I don't know. I'd have to see some examples. Um, so yeah, get with me and then we'll figure that out. Um, is there an option to have virtual and in-person drop-ins at the same time? Yeah, absolutely. There is. You can definitely have virtual and in-person drop-ins at the same times, and students can check in. Yes, they can. Um, it's just utilizing probably that online check-in feature will be probably the best approach for that. So, I would say Bianca, if you want to like talk more about it, then why don't you just shoot me an email and we can set up a side meeting to kind of walk through that and figure out the best approach for that. But yeah,
Hey,
talk.
Daniel, I
Yes.
have a quick question. Let's say I'm checking in a student for drop-in and I choose other services, like the availability for that course is not listed in my tutor's availability, but they can do it. Is there any way I can indicate what course that student's in, like in a notes section or whatnot?
Yeah, I think I remember this came up um, at the previous institution. I think I think the only way to do this is in the comments though, because unless we created like some sort of wild card, but I don't think
Mhm.
that's like a I don't know if that's really ideal. So I don't know, maybe you and I can talk.
Yeah, because if we did put it on if I do check them in as drop-in other services, there won't be a comment section. So I'm like, at the end when I'm pulling reports, I'm like, why did these drop-in people or students come visit? And that's kind of where I'm at and stuck with trying to, you know, figure out why they came for what course.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you, and I think I know this is kind of like this is like a long standing. Yeah, let's try to let's link up at like off this meeting and see what we can come up with.
All
But
right, yeah, great.
I don't know if there's a really ideal solution, but maybe we can come up with something.
Yeah, we'll think something up.
Yeah, cool. All right, Alex. Um, okay, so I wanna switch gears and talk about the kiosk for a second. So before I do that, um, let me just sorry. Give me one second. Okay, I just want to clear everyone out so I can basically do the demos in the kiosk. Okay, all right. So for the kiosk, so to access the kiosk, you would again go to this icon, click kiosk. Once you um, once you do this, so your location will you'll have to find your location. But then if you notice behind the screen here, like I got logged out. When you activate the kiosk, it logs you out from your like main login. So when you get into the kiosk and you select the location, it's gonna ask you what you want the kiosk to offer. So you can have it do all services, or you can choose specific services. Like I only want it to do computer lab. I only want it to do like one of these. In most cases, I think you're going to always want to choose the all available services, but there might be some circumstances where you only want to offer like one of them for like maybe it's like a workshop, or if you've got something dedicated for like a study space or a computer lab, like a laptop, or I mean like a iPad, like that's dedicated for that like lab, then you could just choose computer lab and the only thing they can check in for is that that lab service. But if it's more general reception, front desk, then you just do like all available services. Okay, so this is what the kiosk looks like. Um, and it really works. The way it works is um, student puts in their CWID, they click submit, and this is that student I had checked in for the study space. And so it's basically like the only thing they can do right now is check out because they can't students really can't be checked in for basically more than one thing at the same time. And I know this, I think this has come up before with somebody. I know this has come up before on campus with like kind of like checking in students. But yeah, it is a sort of a limitation of the system. So we just got to work with it, I guess, for now. So I'm going to check out this student, and then I'm going to go back to the home. So um, so now, actually, let me log out. Let me go back here. Okay, so now we're in the kiosk fresh, and basically, like the student has two options. They're either here for advising or other services. So the other services are going to be the lab or the study space. So they can check in for either of these, right? So those are this is the head count, record a visit. This is the track time service. So they can check in for one of these, or they can check in for an advising option. So these are going to be drop in because I don't think I have I think I might have to go back and set it up. But basically this is for drop in. So I'm here for GE advising. And again, it's basically the same options. I either want a specific person or I want first available. So if they want a specific person, then they'll see who's available. And this list will only be shown based on who actually has availability. If if there isn't availability in the system, then you don't show up here. Or the first available is also an option. So just again, whatever they select here, you've checked in, okay, got it, and that's it. So I mean, obviously, like I was talking through that, but like to go back to Diane's thing is like if you imagine me not talking through it, it's like two or three clicks and they're checked in. Um, and so let me pull up another. Actually, sorry. So yeah, the kiosk logs you out, which was kind of annoying for the demo, but it's a security thing because you basically don't want you don't want your account to be like active or available for anyone to like come and mess with it. So just automatically logs you out. Um, I'm just really gonna quickly make an appointment so I can show you what that would look like to check in an appointment. Just um, bear with me one second. Okay, so choose to do that. Let's see. Okay. So going back to the kiosk again. Okay. So student has an appointment when they go into the kiosk. Oops. What happened there? Hmm. Yeah, sorry about this. Okay, thank you for your patience. I apologize for the. Um, um, okay, sorry. All right, I'm gonna try this again. All right, fingers crossed. Here we go. Okay, so voila. Okay, so student has an appointment. It recognizes that they can check in right from here, and yeah, basically they just click on this check-in button and they're checked in. They also have these options. So, um, these would be visible too, but if they're there for their appointment, then obviously that's what they would check in for. They just click it and that's it. They're checked in and it goes back to normal. Um, so so the kiosk is like it, it's a really it's useful in the sense that it's like self-service, right? It shouldn't really require any like human kind of oversight. I mean, what you would have to do is activate the kiosk in the morning. And so I know a lot of locations around campus have iPads that IT can configure for this. And so you just have to like kind of like turn on the iPad. And what we do for the kiosk is we set up like a special account that you use to log into the kiosks. So no one has to log in through their personal account. You just log in through like a direct login account that we have. And then you can just activate the kiosk and basically it should basically stay on all day. I think I have heard in the past that sometimes it times out, but I think the kiosks are set so that they would basically be on all day. Um, and yeah, you can just kind of leave it and direct students over there. Oh, you have an appointment, check in at the kiosk. You're here for drop-ins, check in at the kiosk. If you have like a front desk, like student assistant, then obviously the appointment center is an option. Um, it gives them there's more control with the appointment center, but also the kiosk serves all the same functions. Um, so what I want to do just before we wrap up, we got about 11 more minutes, is I want to just circle back on some reporting. Um, so I went to the report area and For this one, there's a specific report called a check-in report. And basically, once you get your, I'm just going to put my filters in here. Okay, I'm just going to run this check-in report just for today. Um, but theoretically, you can run this report for any amount of time that you choose. But I just want to show you this check-in report. And I think we have looked at this in like the session last week a little bit. Not so much on the check-ins, um, but I just want to show you what this report can do. So basically, yeah, like these are all of the appointments that I had checked in today. So some of them were like for actual appointments, others were for like those like track time or the study. Um, yeah, so this one here, the other services, this was the study space. Um, I thought I had checked a student in for the computer lab. Oh, you know what? I think maybe let me run this again. Hold on. Yeah, I had an inactive user. That's my issue here. Yeah, so I had the study space, the computer lab check-in, and the computer lab check-in was the no, the study space was the track time. So that's this row, this top row here. So you can see the check-in time and the checkout time. Whereas whereas the computer lab, this third row here, it's just giving you the like it's just giving you the check-in time. It doesn't actually it doesn't actually track the duration. Even though there's a zero there, it doesn't actually track the duration. Um, so this report, like if yeah, if you're like wanting to find out like how many people are coming through for their appointments. Now, for appointments, I want to reiterate is that the appointment report, the appointment summary report are better. However, check-in report can be give you some useful data, um, especially if you're using it to track like non-appointment type stuff, like study spaces, computer labs, other kinds of things that you just want to track that aren't really related to specific appointments. Um, it's a good report.